Well, hi guys, and welcome back. Now this is my introduction to a compilation of several bits of video footage that I've taken over the last 2 or 3 days really. I've been out to the workshop on odd occasion, done bits, then come back, got on with other things and gone back again. So rather than doing a long stretch at a time, they're all bits and pieces I've joined together. So this is the result anyway, and it is what, build chapter part 9 or whatever of the Warbirds Replicas Hawker Tempest. Hope you enjoy it, guys. Anyway, let's have a look at the video now. Well, here we are, guys, back again for the next part of the build of the Warbirds Replicas Hawker Tempest. Quite good really, because if I look outside, or if you guys look outside, you can see that it's wet, raining. Not as bad as yesterday. Yesterday we had an absolute downpour which caused the road outside my cottage to flood, which was interesting. But anyway, today's a wet day, so it's a build day. So let's have a look where we're up to. I'll just turn the camera around so we can look at the building board. And move around to it. So what I've done already is the wing bandage, which was obviously drying overnight. I've now sanded that, very lightly sanded it. Be careful when you're sanding. What you don't want to do, you don't want to sand into the veneer, obviously. You just want to get rid of the edge. And then I've given it another coat of PVA. So hopefully, if I tilt that backwards and forward, you can see it there, getting the light reflecting off it. So it's a nice smooth surface. Similarly, the top as well. So now I can let that dry, and whilst I go back now and have a look at the fuselage and see where we got to on that. Okay, so let's take the clamps off. Put those away. So as you recall, and look at yesterday's video, I put the balsa inner cheeks in place there, the supports between F2 and F1. So the next job is to fit F1 onto F2, and also obviously to the fuselage sides. So that is going to go on, and that will now sit. Let's just remove that hatch. F1 will now sit against those balsa cheeks that I put in place there. So, and that provides a nice, firm, solid location for F1. You can see it there against that, which is really good. It's a nice solid one. But before I get much further, what I want to do is have a look at the engine mount, because I want to ensure that when we put the cowl in place, which should fit over there like so, when we fit that in place, then obviously I want to get the standoff correct for the motor. Now fortunately I'm using the motor that Richard has used, so I'll just go and get that now. Right, let's have a look at that. What I want to look at are a couple of things which Richard has pointed out. One of which is the fact that we've got to solder our 4mm bullets on there, which isn't a problem. They don't come with it. Fortunately, I've got spares of those. And one of the things that Richard mentioned was the fact that the T mount, or the cross mount, sorry, when you mount it to the motor, you can't get at the fixing screws to mount the... So what he's on about here is, get that roughly in place. With that in place, I don't know if you can see it there, and when you line the motor up, this is going to be difficult to try and get this in focus, but let's try and see here. There. What you get is a situation where if I tilt that, you can see you can't get at that top hole there because the case obscures half that hole. So trying to get a screwdriver in there straight is next to impossible. So really these mounts should be a little bit larger. But as Richard has said, well, it doesn't really matter, because what you can do is you can mount use one of the ply pieces that comes in the kit as a motor mount. So you can screw through that into the back plate of the motor, and then that whole assembly becomes the motor mount. You can then screw through there into the former. So I'm going to look into that and see if that's the best way to do it or not, as the case may be. So I'm going to mull over that and the fixings off camera, and I'll come back to you shortly. Okay, so this is what I've done. I've drilled one of the ply standoff pieces, mounting pieces, to suit the spacing of the inner hole set of the cross member, and I've used the screws there to drill from this back into here. Now this becomes now my mounting plate, so I can fix that to the other standoff, which is necessary because I think we need about a 5mm for the motor to come forward to stick out of the cowl. And then in turn, I've taken F1 off, I've drilled F1 as well, so the whole lot will either be screwed together or bolted together. Obviously if you're going to bolt through, then maybe having T nuts on the back here. There's not a lot of ply to fix into there. If I was going to fix it with, say, wood screws, which is perfectly adequate or perfectly okay, I would probably put some extra ply on the back in there. I may still do that, to be perfectly honest, because I do like a strong former. The only reason I say that is because if I can flex that, and if I can flex that, the motor will flex it. I know we're going to put a lot of support in around here to stop that flexing, but we'll see how it goes anyway. I haven't decided on whether to use T-nuts or wood screws. My preferred is usually T-nuts, I'll be honest with you, so I may go down that route. To make sure everything lines up, I'm going to cut out the holes in the cowl. So I've just marked with a pencil line around the outside edge of both where I'm going to cut, drilled a starter hole, and I'm going to use my Dremel with the cutting bit in it to cut through. Nice and easy, nice and gently, nice and noisy. messy job, noisy job. You've got to be careful as well because it can easily run off, especially if you get a thin bit of plastic. Anyway, you can see that I've done that. I'll do the other one off camera because you don't have to put up with that noise. And then to form it to the correct shape, because obviously it's they're ragged holes, use the Dremel again with the sanding drum. Now Richard uses a bigger sanding drum, and if you got those, absolutely fine. I haven't, so I'm using this. Okay, so that's the cutting done. I'm going to fine tune that with sandpaper just round there, just to get rid of the rough edges as well. But the most important thing now is that I can offer it up to the fuse and see where that motor is going to come. So let's just go back down there. Obviously that's going to fit back to the recess here that we formed when we put F2A in front of F2. So let's just plonk this on. F1. This is just double checking to make sure everything fits correctly before I commit to bolting everything together. Click that in place. There we go. That's good. Let's just tighten that up. There. So the next thing I want to check to make sure that the motor has got sufficient standoffs to push it forward or not, as the case may be. So let's just mount the cowl, which sits in the recess between F2 and F2A. I'm going to try and push the motor back in. Okay, with those 2 ply pieces on, that gives me, the prop is 5mm. You look there, that's the prop driver. That's sticking too far out in my book, so what I'm going to do, say right, I don't need both those ply pieces, I only need one, and that is bang in line, bang in line. God, that would be a lovely fit. That would be. Okay, so I'm not going to use the second plate, I'm only going to use the first plate, which means that that fixes directly to F1. Now if I was screwing that in, definitely I'd be putting some more backing, ply backing, to strengthen F1. I would rather F1 was a bit thicker ply, but hey, we've got what we've got. So in my case, if I fit T-nuts, certainly the T-nuts are going to protrude through from here. So what I might do is get some little ply discs and stick them to the back first of all, that the T-nuts can go into, to give me more depth really for the T-nuts. I'll just go and get a T-nut and show you what I mean. Okay, so let's see if I can get this on camera. Maybe I'll zoom in. Let's just, there we go, that's good. Let's get that end on. So you can see there's my F1 and there's a T-nut. If I hold the T-nut somehow alongside there, you can see that it's protruding. It will protrude by about, I don't know, 2.5 mil. And I don't want to cut the end of the, yes, I could file the end of the T-nut down, but I don't want to do that. What I need to do is to be able to have that T-nut in place like that there. So I need to have, in effect, the ply that was going to go on the front. I need to put that on the back of that, and that gives me no problems at all, because that strengthens this and it gives me sufficient depth. Oops, I'm out of camera. It gives me sufficient depth for the T-nut to go through that and that. So that's what I'm going to do. But I will probably, yeah, I'll probably have to cut a little slot out of here to fit underneath the brace. So let's have a look and see if that's the case. Let's go back out again. Let's just draw a line where that brace fits in there, which is about there. If I line this up with the holes, gosh, it's very close. But yes, I do need to cut a little bit out. It's not much. Literally, it's about that much there needs to be cut out of there, so that that then can be glued behind this former, and I can put my drill then the hole out for the T-nuts to go through. That sounds like a plan. Right, I'll crack on with that. It's easier to see now that I've put the T-nuts in place, where you can see how they protrude through. So I wouldn't want that to go through F1. So what I'm now going to do is glue that plate to the back of F1, and obviously press those in with the vise to get in the holes that are already there, and that should be good to go, be mounted. Having left the T-nut back plate holder to dry on F1, I've put F1 in place. I've glued it on with some expanding Gorilla Glue brown, just to make sure I've got a good fit on there. And yeah, that's in place, totally clamped up, as you can see, to make sure it's a solid fit. So I've got to let that dry now before I can continue with any blocking across between F1 and F2, both the top and the bottom. The top blocking balsa blocking, support, backing, whatever you want to call it, isn't in the kit, so I'll just have to use some of my scrap box bits and pieces, of which I've got plenty. We'll see later. So let that dry and come back to that. So we're now at the stage where I want to fit these balsa blocks that you're provided with in the kit. There are two long ones and two short ones. The longer ones fit in between F2 and F3, and the shorter ones between F1 and F2 there. And the idea behind them is that they're going to form or give you something to form the curve, the continuation of the curve, let's just move that out of the way, of the cowl here back through between F2 and F3. So when you put it in, you need to position it so that it's sitting proud, I would say, of the balsa fuselage sides there, so you can sand it to profile. Now the other important thing with them is that it will transfer, or they will transfer the load from a nose impact through between F1, F2 and F3, spread the load. So it's very, very important they're fixed. And then once these side pieces are fixed here, then this top piece gets fitted in there, so that can be rounded to the chin profile as well. So let's get on and fit the blocks, which are slightly too big, so we need to make sure that they are a good fit. Obviously don't want a sloppy fit on them so when they go in, so I'm just going to measure that up. This just needs a slight amount taken off there. Only needs about 1/16 of an inch, between a 32nd and a 1/16 of an inch, so maybe 0.9 of a millimetre. What I'm going to use to do that is I'm going to use the good old Parkside table sander here. I've already adjusted this to make sure it's at 90 degrees. Middle a little, cheap as chips. So let's just push that block in. Move back, let's see if she fits. That's a good, nice fit in there. Will it fit the other side as well? Yes, it will. Maybe slightly larger on the other side, so not quite as much to come off. On this one, maybe 0.6, something like that, of a millimetre. Let's just sand that down. You'll hear me do it, you won't see me do it. Yep, that's a good fit. That's a good fit. So we need the front ones, need more taken off the front ones. It's a nice tight fit in there. So what we're looking at doing is these front blocks need to be recessed in because that's where the cowl goes. So I don't want to have to sand away too much, although I'm going to have to sand the curve away there. But then for they're not aesthetically important, so there's nothing to stop me actually twisting those round like that, which may be a better bet because that's going to give more support here. So I'm probably going to do that. These ones are important because, as I said before, that's where the cowl, we're going to have to form the cowl over that. So I think I'll set these at an angle here. I'll leave a bit there to be sanded around. That's okay, I'm not too worried about that. And then that block will sit on top there. Now, whilst I'm talking about blocking out of pieces, Richard shows a couple of diagonal blocks going down here to support the top. Whether they're necessarily, just switch that off. Whether they're necessary or not, I don't know. There isn't any blocking provided in the kit, but there's plenty of 6mm scrap balsa, so I'm going to get some of that. And in fact, I'm going to get the bits that should have been the cheeks that go down here, but I couldn't find them before. So I'm going to use these bits of 6mm. And again, I need to make sure these come in. Now, I've complicated the issue on mine because I've got the thickening on the ply on F1. So I'll need to cut a recess for that. So just looking at this, I need to trim that amount off. So back on with the sander. It's only 6mm balsa this is, but it's end grain on. So it's going to be it's going to be a solid mount, it's going to be a solid lump for this to push against because it's end grain on. So that's going to go in there like so, but I need to make like a cutout here somewhere, there, for that to fit over the edge. I'll do that off camera and come back to you when I've done it. Okay, so you can see that I've got those pieces fitted there and there. Don't worry about over, I'm going to cut those once I've glued them on. So that's what I'm going to do next, glue them on. Well, I hope you enjoyed those bits and pieces of putting the model together further. So a lot of work, well, all bits and pieces, not a lot of work, but lots of bits and pieces. But it is getting there, and literally now with the balsa blocks glued around the cowl, ready for sanding. The wing is ready, just needs an overall sand, and then that's ready for covering. The fuselage, hopefully I'll get some time tomorrow. If not tomorrow, it'll be Saturday. Sanding the fuselage down. I've got a slight problem. I noticed that the battery hatch has developed a bit of a starving horse profile, you know, the sort where it curves between, or bellies in between the formers. I don't quite know what to do about that, whether I should redo the whole thing. In fact, what I might do is actually take if you like, not a mould of it, but draw around it, template it and 3D print one. I don't know. It doesn't look right, it doesn't look nice, so I might show that on the next video. A bit disappointing that. But anyway, I'll get on and do the sanding, so hopefully that won't be the next video because I'm not going to show you me sanding the thing, but I'll show you the results of the sanding possibly prior to brown paper covering this weekend. Anyway guys, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you like the videos, please like down below, thumbs up. If you don't, obviously thumbs down. Comment and I'll get back to you whenever I can. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, see you on the next one. Bye.